Hello, thank you for the opportunity. I would like to hear from the panel their position on offering to the British public an opportunity to vote on the continued membership of the European Union, i.e. a referendum.
If we start with where we expect a short answer, and we'll start from there.
Absolutely. I believe the only other party that wants a referendum on in or out are the Lib Dems. Of course, Sebastian will be campaigning for a yes vote, and I will be campaigning for a no vote. But yes, all three major parties, or what we like to call the failed old parties in this country, have all reneged on their promise of a referendum. First, we had we were going to have a referendum on the Constitution. Of course, that was taken out of our hands somewhat by France and Holland, basically saying no to the Constitution. And so Tony Blair turned around and said, well, right, we don't need one. But of course, knowing the way the European Union works, of course, we got the Lisbon Treaty in through the back door. Gordon Brown denied it had anything to do with the Constitution. Most people know it is the Constitution in disguise, and we've got to have a say on it. People are very angry that all those, and even Andrew's leader said,
I'm going to be really cool.
He said we couldn't have one. So
I just wanted to come back before you all thought that the Green Party didn't want a referendum and it went on for too long. Because we do, and we do want a referendum because we do want to fundamentally change the way Europe works. We do want to stay in Europe, but in a limited way, because we believe some decisions have to be taken on a European level. We do need to look at big picture stuff. We need to look at climate change. There are international things that have to be done on that bigger scale. But for the majority of things, we want to bring them back as locally as possible. So we want to take them not just out of Europe, but out of Westminster as well, and bring them right back down to the local level. And on the referendum issue, we would have other referendum, not just on Europe. We encourage more referendum because we believe it increases participation and it brings decision making back to the local level, which is where we believe it should be.
Thank you. Well, yes, we want a referendum, and I would say too, I hope Simon's listening, the Green Party used to be against the idea of a federal European superstate, but they changed their minds once they got an MEP, and she enjoyed the gravy train, exactly like UKIP MEPs love the gravy train. Yes, all three parties promised us a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty. All three, let's not say reneged, they lied. So yes, we do want that referendum, and once that referendum on the Lisbon Treaty is gone, we want another referendum on whether to stay in Europe or to come out. And I would say, come out, let's have a free trade area and carry on as friends, but also as independent nation states.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Robin, let's not bandy and justify the words around against people. The Conservative Party was committed to a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty. We were always clear that if the treaty had been ratified, which we opposed in Parliament, once it is ratified, you can no longer have a referendum on whether it should be ratified. So to bandy words about doesn't help.
That's not right.
I'm not in favour. We are not in favour.
Treaties have been broken.
Okay, Robin, thank you. I was just answering that point.
Yeah, not very well.
We are not in favour of a referendum on whether we should be in or out of the European Union. For a very simple reason is that there are some things where you just have to accept it is so important to the question of how you govern this country that political parties who seek to be in government have to be very clear about what their policy is. Where our policy is to be in the European Union. Our policy is also not to go to Westminster and surrender any more powers to the European Union, indeed quite the opposite. To negotiate in order to return powers on issues like social employment legislation to this country. We will never again, under a Conservative government, allow a situation where your representatives have gone to Westminster and, as Labour have done, actually with the connivance of the Liberal Democrats in the House of Lords, transferred our powers to Brussels without the consent of the people of this country.
You did it in the first place.
The Lisbon Treaty is self-amending. There won't be any more major treaties. It's self-amending, retrospective.
Of course he didn't.
I know exactly what you're talking about, so-called ratchet clause, and actually one of the things we need to do is to make sure that by the use of our powers of blocking it, because we have to, because it can be triggered, but it has to be triggered by unanimity.
Jack. Jack.
Yeah. My view has always been that it's extremely valuable for Britain to be part of Europe. Europe is a great trading partner for us. We have 1 million people, British people working in Europe. We have lots of people from Europe coming here, contributing to our economy and working here as well. And we've benefited enormously from the coming together of different nations, which has contributed to keeping peace in Europe for the last 50 years as well. Referenda has not been part of our tradition in Britain. I have to admit, though, that our system is changing, and there will be referenda on other things like the voting system that the British government wants, that the Labour government would bring in if it was re-elected. I firmly believe that if there were to be a referendum, it's not our policy to hold one, that Britain would vote decisively in favour of remaining in the European Union. That's what I would be arguing for. I think a lot of the major changes in our relationship with Europe took place under the Conservatives when the Maastricht Treaty came in, so there's no referendum then. The Lisbon Treaty was really about making Europe much more rational, making it tidier, making it more democratic. And because it was already ratified, there's no point in going ahead with a referendum.
Thank you. Well, Helene's not quite right about the Liberal Democrat position on a referendum. In fact, what we are offering the citizens of this country are 2 referendums with regard to Europe. The first is in relation to the euro. If at any point in the future it is considered appropriate to join the euro, it will only be as the result of a referendum. And the second referendum is any fundamental change proposed from Europe will also have to be ratified by a UK referendum of all citizens. So you all know that the Liberal Democrats are pro-Europe, and we are keen to play our part in Europe. And I don't think, in this day and age, in terms of being a trading nation of the world, that actually we need to make any apology for that. We are a global village now, whether we like it or not. So we have those 2 commitments, 2 referenda, and I have to say there's a lot of blame being placed on the Liberal Democrats, considering that we're not in power yet in Westminster. But hey ho, that might change as well.
Thank you.
I'm here with a delegation of constituents